Good evening and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Layer5 community meeting. Today is 30th of July, and we have some topics lined up for today. And without further ado, let's get started. So we had a couple of newcomers join this week. So in this community, we have a tradition to let the newcomers introduce themselves to the community. So if you are on the call and if you are new, or if this is your first time in the community call, please introduce yourself and so that we can get to know you.
Hey everyone, this is Yash.
Hey Ash.
So this is my first a community call. Basically, I've been like 2 calls before. So the last one was the newcomers meeting, and the meeting which took the day before that. And this is my third call, but like the first call in the community meeting. So yes. So basically, if you want to know about me, like I'm a final year student at IIT Varanasi. So currently I'm interning with MTX Group, and like it's about to end in like 1 week. So I was thinking of getting involved in some other project, right? So basically I was thinking of getting into DevOps. So I was searching for projects and I found this. So here I am like exploring what this project is about.
Nice, Yash. Thank you for introducing. Yeah, there are many DevOps centric initiatives here at Layer5, and I'm sure you will find something cool to work on. We also have a continuous integration CI working group meeting every Thursday. So that might be something of interest to you as well.
Oh, that's great. I'll try to join that. Like basically, first of all, I'm trying. Like my internship is in my final phases, right? So I'm quite involved in that. So I didn't get a chance to like clone the repositories and look through the code. But like I'm trying to attend the meetings as much as I can, and like when I get free, I'll start that as well. Sure, I'll attend the meetings as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Great to have you, Yash. All right. Is there anyone else who would like to introduce before I start calling out names?
So Ashani, Ashani, without your last name, I suppose it's hard to know if you've introduced before.
Sorry, can you just repeat? I didn't hear.
Oh yeah, hey Ashani, hey, have you said hi on this call before? Have you introduced yourself?
No. Okay. Hi, I'm Oshani. I have been in one meeting before this, which was conducted on Monday, and I in fact missed yesterday's newcomers meeting also. I am currently studying KIT, and I've recently joined this, and this is my second meeting I'm attending. So I'm trying to learn new things from here, and let's see.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, well, but speaking of, just like with respect to Git, I don't know if you're familiar with this utility or not, but there's GitHub has a CLI called GH, and they used to have one called Hub. I think it was just called Hub, if I remember. But this one's called GH, and it's really helpful, especially for checking out pull requests and checking out those branches from the pull requests and then doing reviews on those. It's really helpful. So anyway, just since you were learning.
Yeah, I am not really aware of this, but I'll surely let you know.
Nice, cool.
Thank you, Ashani. Robert, would you like to introduce yourself as well? I know you introduced in the other call, but there are a couple of new people in this call as well. So would you like to introduce here?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
So I'm a new engineer in a company which produce some processors and some other stuff. So you should know this company. I'm a new role here, so I start to benchmarking some mesh services, and that's why I'm using Meshery to get some charts and get some results from Kubernetes and from some other databases. So, but I'm also new and need to more learn about Meshery and also Docker, Kubernetes, and so on. So nice to meet you, and nice to have some community here.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. Nice to have you. Anyone else new here?
Hello, am I considered new?
Do
Hey,
it.
Barry.
It never hurts.
Yep. All right, sure. Hello, everyone. If you guys are not aware of who I am Barry. I'm coming from Singapore, and I'm currently a penultimate student in Singapore, basically. Nice to meet you guys.
Thank you, Barry.
Nice.
You already have an item on today's agenda as well.
Yeah. Just to translate for us Americans, that means sophomore, I think. Yeah. Penultimate, is that the?
Penultimate is third year.
Oh,
Sophomore
third year.
is second year, I think.
Yeah, see, I got the translation wrong. Nice. Junior, third year. Very good. Good.
Awesome. So, and before we move on to the topics, is there anyone else who would like to introduce? All right then. So let's get on to the topics. So to start off, I'll talk about CNCF students. So if you didn't already know, CNCF has a cloud native community group. So this has multiple groups across different regions and across different projects, and it also has various technical advisory groups. So CNCF also has which recently started a students group. So it is pretty popular. As you can see, it has 3,000 members, and it has been hosting a lot of events really to help students get involved with CNCF projects and basically to get started with contribution and start using, and it talks about all the different Kubernetes projects and all those things. And CNCF also has a Twitch channel called CNCF TV, and it also recently started a new show called Edu. So it is basically targeted towards students who are exploring the cloud native landscape and starting to get involved in CNCF projects. So we had a discussion with the organizers of this CNCF student group, and we are planning. Layer5 is planning to conduct multiple sessions targeted with the CNCF student group to basically help students get engaged with Layer5 projects and get started with service meshes and all. So Layer5 has been a really welcoming community to the students, and the numbers really show it. So Meshery is the most popular LFX project. So we have 741 applicants for a single mentorship position. So the data really shows that it is a good place for students, and we have a lot of students in the community. And if you look into this call, we have a lot of students here as well. So we are doing something right, and we would like to show show that to the outside world. So these are the sessions that we have planned right now. So oh, so we are proposed to conduct it in the first weekend of August, and it also means that we have multiple opportunities for others in the community to get engaged with such events. Like if you'd like to talk about your experience contributing to into Layer5 and into CNCF, you are welcome to join here. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. So this is something for us to look forward to.
Yeah, it's also the other part of pointing that out is that there's also some opportunity for those of you in the community to participate in that, like to either share a couple of different ways, like share your experiences. Certainly, for any of you who've been around for longer than a week, it becomes fairly obvious and somewhat self-evident that there's a culture of being warm and welcoming, and making sure that people are, feel encouraged to be engaged, people feel okay to dismiss their imposter syndrome, to ask questions, and share and learn and grow together. And so, yeah, this is another way of sort of spreading that message and sharing. And so your experiences are quite relevant. So they're, if these are of interest to any of you, then just signal, just message in Slack. You can message Anita or Navendu, or there's a number of community managers that you can message. Aditya Chatterjee, there's a lot of folks. Nice, great, perfect.
Yeah, these events might be streamed into Layer5's YouTube channel as well as Twitch. So if you haven't already, you can subscribe to the Layer5 YouTube channel as well. Awesome. Moving on to the next item, Devapriya, would you like to take from here?
Yeah, can I share my screen?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so basically right now on the Layer5 members, this badge, it takes us to the Meshery operator docs page. And we were supposed to create a website on the Layer5 website itself, a web page on the website itself. So we did not have a design as of now. So I've taken up content from here and tried to come up with something on my own. So I wanted to show this. This is what I've done as of now. So here, this is basically the same content from this. So I wanted to know if there's any feedback or if there's anything else I can add.
Okay. Anybody have feedback? So for context, most of you know this because a lot of you have contributed directly to the Layer5 IO site. As a matter of fact, we were just tweeting about that. I think there's almost 200 of you who've contributed to the Layer5 IO site, which is fantastic. It didn't look nearly as sexy as it does now, and it wasn't nearly as robust as it on its prior framework. It used to be a Jekyll-based site. Now it's a Gatsby JS-based site. And it's still a static site, so it still is deployed on GitHub Pages, and but it does have some forms. It does accept input, and it looks deceivingly dynamic in a couple of areas. And if you're curious as to how that dynamicism is achieved without a web server running some of that, you'll have to ask the question on discuss.layer5.io. That's actually a good segue into just a brief mention that you all have also created a discussion forum. and it's available at discuss.layer5.io. It is not as actually, Devapriya, do you mind going there very briefly to discuss that so that people are aware that like a question about Gatsby.js or like a question about Layer5.io, that site is one of our projects. Like pretty much everything around here is a project and built by all of you. And so if there were a question about any of those sites, of which there's like 6 or so different sites that you all maintain, like a good category is the landscape category. The landscape category, that's like the third one. Yeah, it's deceiving. It was, if you go back, it's the third. Yes, the third one down. So there's announcements on the left-hand side. The big, yep, and then there's community block, and then there's the landscape block. That's probably a good section for questions on Layer5.io. There is a landscape on Layer5.io, and it has information about all of, well, it doesn't have information about all of the service meshes. There are a number more meshes than what are represented there. There's a lot of service meshes out there. It's we live in a meshy world. And Sanskar is representing as a Linkerd hero on the call today. So he can attest that there's multiple meshes out there. Anyway, so that was just a brief mention that like, hey, there's any number of things that get asked in Slack and we lose them over time. People here are so chatty and it's fantastic, but the history spilleth over and we lose that info all the time. So, so I would encourage everyone to ask questions here because it really helps everybody else. Back to Devapriya's work. You're all welcome to provide her feedback. Like it was just acknowledged recently that the site itself will highlight each of the projects and give some information about them. And that the mesh operator, which has mesh sync inside, that logo on that stick figure's chest is the mesh sync logo. So the mesh operator has mesh sync as a custom controller. It also has a mesh broker. We use NATs there. And as another custom controller, those weren't represented first class per se. The mesh operator is called out on a few different pages, but there wasn't one dedicated to it and what it does. And so Devapriya, like without any other guidance other than just we need a page, dang, looks pretty good. And yeah, it's entirely appropriate to just reuse the existing content. For my part, I'll lodge a few comments on the side, but broadly, like you hit it pretty well. Were you able to find any other images or assets to include in the carousel?
I was going through the drive, but I did not find anything like any images as such. This is all I could find from the docs. So I like, if there's something I'm missing, you can share it. I can add it in.
Nice.
This is what I could find.
Yeah, no, that's great. You did the right thing looking through the drive. There's a lot in the drive that people don't necessarily realize. Yeah, and we're a little bit light on, like, those are the 2 core representations. So that's really good. Okay.
Just one thing to highlight: when there is a change, so we have to make sure that it is being changed in everywhere, wherever the related topics are there. So because we have seen in past, like, there are multiple places where, like, the information is different.
Yeah. Yep. Samir, I spaced out there for just a moment. Part of your point was, hey, it's good that there's multiple venues in which people can get information about the projects and what all of you are doing. Although, because they're not necessarily a single source of truth, and when things get change, sometimes that isn't reflected pervasively. And that was part of your point. But did you also suggest a solution? or just highlighting that we need to stay vigilant and.
Yes, so what I am telling is like, if there is some kind of link that like, we can do between the pages. So wherever there is a change, so that get reflected here.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. It's actually a good, let's talk about this for just a moment, because it's kind of a, maybe it'll tickle your noodle. I don't know. Maybe it'll be really boring, but it's the notion that like, let's take this as an example. If you go to any repo that any GitHub repository that we generally, that's created by the community now spans 5 GitHub orgs. And that's because we've broken them down a bit because we've donated a few projects to the CNCF. But, collectively, I don't know, there's like probably about 60 repos. And GitHub is, I've worked with their, with Nat, their founder, some on enhancements a couple of years ago, because it's still really lacking in some areas. And I was pleased to see that they've improved upon it. Some of those improvements are like relegated to, or they're only available in GitHub Enterprise, which is to say that managing many repos is kind of a pain in the rump. And anyway, for a simple use case, if you consider that every repo has a README, and the READMEs have kind of a standard bit of information about the Layer5 and how to get involved. Like, it makes a lot of sense to kind of centralize those assets so that you can make a change one place and it affects all the readings. Part of the problem with that type of an approach is when you make a change, you might just be reflecting on how that's going to impact the particular repo that you're in or the particular thing that you're doing, and don't then pay attention or even realize that there's a dependency elsewhere. And so it's kind of a catch-22. You sort of get it either way. You either get the benefit of centralized change along with the risk of like totally breaking images and other things elsewhere, or one of the things that had been considered similar to this type of an issue is that for those of you that have used in Meshri's UI, there is an area that has about 4 different links to the documentation, to GitHub issues, to the community Slack, to the community calendar, I think. And it had been the concept had been presented that a live feed of some of those things could be provided in Meshri UI, meaning rather than being redirected from Meshri UI to go look at what events are coming up, is to just show them there, or rather than being redirected to go look at what the release notes were for given releases, is just to show them there. And anyway, it's the same concept, that it would be sourcing that information separately. Anyway, it doesn't solve what Samir is saying, and part of what I'm saying, I think, is like it's mostly about awareness, I think, is how we try to keep those things up to date. It's also about ensuring that each of you have ownership over the areas that you're focused within. There are a number of you who are maintainers and have been here for a while, have been gone through the contributor ladder and are still, even if you're a maintainer, you're still on that ladder doing bigger and bigger things. As and when any of you are ready, you're encouraged as quickly as possible to have ownership and decision-making authority over things. So my hope is that, or our hope is that, if you're carrying around the Meshri operator tattoo, and you self-identify with it, and you've been working on it a lot, just as an example, that you would be, you would take it as a responsibility to help propagate those changes. Yeah, I don't know. There are some places where we're fairly clever, like where release notes, as an example, Rudraksh might want to tell us about how automated release notes and auto documentation works. So I'll be quiet and let you guys continue. But if we have time, Rudraksh can speak to it. Cool. Devapriya, that's great. Nice work.
Thank you. So if there's anything else I can add, you can share it with me, because this is a very basic structure what I've created. So I think we have to work more on this.
Thank you, Devapriya. Meghna, would you like to talk about the work you have been doing on the meshing tip?
Yeah, sure. I actually have some doubts regarding it. Actually, my computer is restarted, so I won't be able to show it on the screen, but I can explain. So I need to add a meshing chip, right? So there is a chip called operator in the settings page, which we have. And is that the one that I have? Is that the one I need to add the tooltip to? And where should I be adding the chip? I was not sure about that. So
Yep, good.
I need a little help there.
Yeah, great question. So I was just spinning up Meshry to help give you a backdrop to speak to. But yeah, I think real briefly, so they're in, if you're familiar with Meshry's UI, you know,
Yes.
Meshry's UI uses a few different front-end frameworks. One of those is Material UI. So Material UI, there's a component called, and so I'm explaining stuff that Meghna already knows. I'm saying it for the benefit of the rest of us, us ignoramuses. That is that in Material UI, there's such a thing called a chip, or a component called a chip. And this is the chip. And the way that the project currently uses chips is to represent a connection between Meshry and another component, whether it's a Meshry component or other. And so today we have chips for Kubernetes. You can ping, you know, you can ping things, you can get information about Meshry's adapters. And we use chips for those. We use chips for representing connections to other things like Grafana and Prometheus. And we also use a chip to represent, well, what Devapriya was just talking about, the operator. And it looks like my operator just deployed and just got connected, maybe. But what we, so what we don't have is we're not representing the connection to mesh sync in a first class way. And so Meghna is, yeah. Take it from there. I think I teed you up well.
Okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to know if I need to, that's what I saw, the operator one, and then I saw the Figma designs. I went there to just see if the design's already present. So yeah, so right now, do I have to add a mesh sync chip there beside the operator? Is that what I'm supposed to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
you get stuck into a similar situation of like, hey, someone suggested something that we should do, and then like, where's the design? And so good, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Sure.
One thing that'll become interesting, Meghna, as you do this is that, and this is actually good to speak about for just a moment, and that is that mesh sync is, you know, is the heart of Meshry. Following along that analogy, mesh sync pumps blood into each of the other components, into Meshry server. I won't list all the components, but it gathers info and sends it over. Synchronizes what's going on in the surface meshes with Meshry. And so it's really important. Actually, if it's down, Meshry still works. You can still do a lot of performance management things without having mesh sync up, but it's a degraded state. And it's so degraded that it's, Meghna, just foreshadowing, once you're there with a chip for mesh sync, let's talk about potentially having mesh sync up here. Like it's not a place to navigate to per se, but it's so important that if it's ever down or out of, not in sync, you know, across any page that users are on, they should really be aware of that. And that's one thing. The second thing is, you'll notice in most of the chips, if I want to disconnect from this Kubernetes cluster, for example, I can. It'll remove the connection. And actually, since I'm disconnecting from the cluster, it'll ask me if I want to remove the operator or not. The point to bring this up is that your mesh sync chip for now will not have, it will be like the operator one. It will not have a disconnect for the moment.
Okay.
Whereas, Cool.
All right. Thank you. Uh, Moving on to the next item, Anita, would you like to talk about the project badges?
Yeah, sure.
Would you like to share your screen as well?
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so I'm guessing some persons are not aware that we actually have badges for the community members in Layer5. But if you have gone through the contributing guide for this repository, you must have seen these badges here. Yeah, so these badges are actually up for the take. Yeah, you can, if you check the membership, the members page, you'll see that we made an update really recently. So once you navigate over here, you can like scan through the different members of the community that have badges and which badges they actually have. So these badges represent each of the projects that you're actively contributing to or you're making notable impact in. So if you're active in the landscape project, you definitely will earn yourself a landscape badge. If you're active on the measure project, you're going to earn yourself a measure project. And these badges go as far as over time, you could actually earn the maintainer role by with your contributions within the community. Yes, so these badges, you can post them on your LinkedIn profiles, on your Twitter pages, just share the news of how your contributions within the community were recognized and how we actually value your contribution. So that's why we created these badges. And if you're making contributions blindly without knowing that you could actually earn a badge in the community, I think you've missed out on a lot. You can start doing that right now. You can see some persons have actually earned themselves badges. Lee is the person leading the chain right now. Next to Abhishek, he has like a majority of the badges. Yeah, but we can get more persons out here owning these badges and making notable contributions to the community. So you can do that by increasing the pace at which you interact in the community and the projects, or whichever one that suits your interest. Just put more effort into it, and then you earn yourself a good badge. And on that note, I also want to bring to your attention that we're actually working on improving on the community handbook. We worked on this during the She Code Africa contribution, but since then there has been so much changes in the documentation and the guidelines in the community. So we have like so many broken links, so many details that are not included in the handbook right now. And the major thing is we want to have this handbook on our website, so everyone, both the users and the contributors that are coming to the community, get to like go through this community handbook on their own without having to request access to our drive. Yeah, so we're looking for contributors and volunteers that will join hands together so we can work towards putting this beautiful piece of art out there for people to help themselves with. So if you think you're good with documentation, you're good at technical writing, you have good writing skills, just send a DM in the Slack channel, and we'll get started on this. Yes, so that's just about what I have to share today.
That's great. And then Anita, did you talk about the patterns badge, or just note that there was another badge? Anita, you're on mute, but so just briefly, I'll say that yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I forgot to mention, but the patterns recently has a badge also. So just know that it's not just the popular projects that you're familiar with that actually have badges. So you can also earn a badge for the patterns project as well.
Cool. And part of the initiative that Anita is championing with the Community Handbook is to not only refine what's written there in the Google Doc, but then I think like Anita was saying that part of the goal is to then publish it on the Layer5.io site. And so that can be done, or from my perspective, I guess, talk to Anita about this, but from my perspective, I think we're about at that point that we can start to get that structured and framed up so that it can get out onto the site, out of the docs and into the site. So not only if you're a technical writer and good at those things, but also if you want to do some things with Gatsby, so which you'll also want to see Anita about. Cool. Who's next?
Yeah, just drop a message in Slack.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to Piyush. Yeah.
Okay, so the topic is test out message CTS system check in your local system and report if unexpected behavior is found. What happened recently is we had really big bugs in this command, that is system check, and why we are having these bugs really late, like there is a lot of time between finding these bugs and all in this command, because people are not using it very oftenly. So this is to like call out that test this command in your system so that we can find the bugs in it really fast and make it more robust. Okay, so what actually happens, okay, before like running this command, run message CTS system login, which will actually work like this. I will just give a quick demo. Okay, so I'll be logging in right now. Okay, so what happens running this command is actually we download one token, that is auth.json in .meshery folder, and then we can run system check just to make sure what's happening. I have perfectly connected system, like I'm able to ping all the adapters, and I'm also able to ping the Kubernetes. Okay, so the actual behavior right now will be like this. Docker is running, Kubernetes is running, version is good, Meshery version is also up to date, and we can see that what are the adapters we are able to ping and what are the adapters that are not running. Okay, so what you guys have to do is try to run this command in various scenarios. Like sometimes you won't have Docker, so try to test this command in that case. And like sometimes you won't have Minikube running, try to test in like that scenario. So if you find something that is not the supposed behavior, or there is any case where you are actually getting an error out of this, like this command is not supposed to return any error, there should be only logs. Even if there are errors, that should be also written as logs, not actually errors. Okay, so if you find something that is not supposed to happen, I report that in Slack so that we can improve this command. And by the way, I forgot to tell you guys what exactly this command is. I'm sorry. So if you will write -h, this is to actually verify environment pre and the post deployment of Meshery. Like if someone wants to, like someone is going to deploy Meshery and he wants to check if his like environment is ready or not, so he can try running this Meshery CTL system check -pre. -p and -p flat are the same, which actually will check when verify environment readiness for the deploy of Meshery. So if we will run it, we can see Docker is available, Kubernetes is available, and we see this tick that is saying Meshery pre-required sites are met. Okay, so use it, guys, and report if there are any bugs. And if we will run after post deployment, we will see something like this. We will also go through adapters check, Meshery's version check, and yeah, these two checks will be additional checks after post deployment. I think I covered it well, right?
Yes, you did, Piyush. Thank you for calling this out. So it makes sense to test this on multiple environments. So thank you for calling this out and getting more people involved in this. Comments to Piyush before we move on to the next item. So if you want to get involved, you can. If you find any bugs, you can open up issues on GitHub or ping on Slack and tag Piyush maybe. All right. Moving on to the next item, Barik, would you like to talk about the measure cited aliases you are working on?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry guys, I cannot share my screen because it's already quite late in Singapore and I'm quite ready to go to sleep right now. Yeah. Actually, just wanted to lift up the spirit of discussion in which we're trying to utilize more of our discussion platform. So I recently posted a new discussion on using memory control aliases. So here, basically, we want to generate a lot of more aliases that is useful to a lot of people. So yeah, just wanted to lift up this spirit and then maybe get some feedbacks on that particular matters, basically.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Does anyone, what's the good way of asking this where people will actually answer? Does anyone not know what Barik is talking about? Or maybe if you're too shy to say that, can anyone give an example of how this would be valuable? How this would be used? Yes, just as I suspected. So just real briefly then, let's do this. So if you are here and you're using Mesh3CTL, you might want to check on the status of your deployment. Looks like mine's been running for a little while, but you also might start to bruise the soft tips of your fingers if you have to type out Mesh3CTL system status. Or if you make all kinds of mistakes on the keyboard, you might fumble 5 times on the way to typing that out. And so there's a couple of ways to overcome this. One is to use auto completion, which lets you hit a tab and just fills it in. And how do you get to auto completion? Well, do Mesh3CTL system completion, and it'll give you the instructions as to how to set that up. So you can just be hitting tab to fill in, dynamically fill in any of the commands. Even at that, it still might get a little bit long. I think on my system, I need to type out mesh, then I can, no, I'm still not there. Mesh, okay, I can type out mesh E and then tab, and then like even auto completion, my fingers can get tired. So what Barik is highlighting is that he's created a repository that contains bash aliases for things like M, S for system. So Mesh3CTL system status. And so he's asking for feedback and input on what everyone else thinks would be convenient. And please drop it into the discuss forum that the thread that he opened up. That would be great. Brainstorm a bit, play with the commands and see what you think would make sense in terms of aliases.
Awesome. So if you already have some aliases set up, you can share that as well. Samir has some aliases as well. Samir, you can share that in the discuss forum as well. Awesome. Thank you, Barik. Thank you for starting this discussion. So Nitish is on the call. So Nitish, would you like to demo the connection wizard?
Yep, sure. I will share my screen. Okay, so like we've actually been trying to, I guess, okay. We've actually been trying to release a new feature into Meshery called connection wizard. So basically what it's trying to do is, like whenever a new user comes to the Meshery platform, like he has to see whether all the deployments has been successful or not. For example, Kubernetes, Meshery, operator, and adapters and all those things. So it's kind of like a way to check whether all these things are working perfectly in Meshery. So yep, this is the PR if you guys want to take a look at it, and I'll just put it in the slide. Okay, so basically what it does is that right now, like I have my Kubernetes cluster configured and Meshery is running in that cluster. So it basically checks whether the Kubernetes is configured or not, and it gives you some basic details like where the cluster is running. Like basically these things you would actually see in the settings panel itself. But the reason why we are doing it over here rather than keeping it in settings panel is that like eventually settings panel would be a place where more complex set of features would be we will be trying to implement those kind of features there, like managing multiple service meshes and those kind of stuff. So in that sense it would make much more sense to have a separate section for troubleshooting and diagnosing these kind of things. Like if, for example, when I right now my Kubernetes is running, but when I go to the next step, which is Meshery operator, you can see that my operator is actively running and then the broker is connected, but then meshing is not actually connected. So because of that, this step is not actually fully complete, and it will not actually let me go to the next step because this step is not fully complete. But I have actually I have to show you guys what these other two steps are, right? So I have just disabled that thing right now so that we can move to the next steps. So this, in case a user is not able, like in case any of these steps are not complete, he could actually stop over here and tell someone that, okay, my Kubernetes is running successfully and my Meshery operator is running, but then meshing is not connected. So from there, it could be easy for people to troubleshoot their problems. So that is one aspect of it. And we could also have take it a step further and implement some diagnostics and troubleshooting tips as well, so that this would kind of become a place where you could get the whole thing set up. Yep. So moving on to, actually this is not a complete, it's not fully complete, it's still on the development process, but I have merged the PR 2 days back so that we could actually it's still being worked upon right now. Yeah. So this is the current UI that we have for checking the adapters that are connected or not. So for example, if I try to connect to Meshery Istio adapter, which I have just started right now, which is running in port 10,000. Okay, so we could actually ping and see whether the adapter is connected or not. So as you can see, like this UI is not yet fully complete, but you can get the idea of what it is trying to do right now. So yeah, the same for metrics as well. We would have Grafana and Prometheus for now, but eventually we can also make it such that, like, usually Grafana and Prometheus are things that are they go with service mesh, right? So we can do that as well in the future, but right now this is the UI that we have. So yep, I have the Prometheus connected, so it's lit up, but I don't have the Grafana connected, so it's not. So I just wanted to give you guys that this is something that is being released on Meshery right now, and if you guys want to contribute to it, then just ping me on Slack or in the general channel itself. Like we can discuss about it and get some ideas, or yep, take it forward.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Given the time, we'll go to the next topic. That's going to get a lot of use, Nitish. Good. Who's next?
Shreyas, would you like to?
Yeah, yes, I'm sharing my screen. Okay, so we are adding the ability to generate pattern components at the build time in various adapter. I have added this one in the Kuma adapter. So what it does is checks the current Kuma version, and if it's not the latest one, it generates the components, gets the components and generates it here. Thank you.
That was concise. My man, being brief. Good, awesome. I will contend with you and argue ad nauseum in Slack, maybe you're aware that we probably don't need the version number being tracked. And I will place that out there, let you think about it, and then tell me that I'm wrong in all the ways in Slack. But think about it. Then that's great. But Shreyas, thanks for moving quickly on that. That's very nice. So you were doing some foundational work by generating pattern components for that service mesh. That'll ultimately be how it is that Meshery is doing most of its operations for each service mesh. So good. That's good work. Ashish, do you want to talk about is there anything that you might want to say with respect to runtime pattern component generation?
Yeah, I had a conversation with Utkarsh regarding this, and he told me he's going to work on the server side for receiving the versions, because until he goes ahead and implements that, there is no use of what I do. But still, I just have to write 2 small functions for that. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll continue this conversation with Utkarsh later.
Cool, good. Yep, there's no time to waste on your side though. You put him in the hotspot. Well, yeah, I would have demoed it, but I'm just waiting on Utkarsh. So yeah. So anyway, I forgot, Mr. Person. I forgot the sarcasm does it. So the yeah, good. Do you can still demo those functions, or like put a check in the box, so to speak, even if the server doesn't have the registry in the server doesn't have the ability to accept it. That's great. Sounds like you're down the path already. Which adapter are you working on now?
Istio currently.
Okay, good deal.
Thank you, Shreyas. So the final item is Lee. Would you like to talk about service mesh patterns on the Meshery website?
Yeah, cool. Yep. I'll chat about this, but just as I go to do that, does anyone have any other topics that we missed? Anybody have anything else they want to say? Questions?
Yeah, just one thing is in the getting started page, Meshery getting started, and there are few changes which needs to be done.
Hit me. Yeah.
Layer 5.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So try Meshery. Yeah. If you go down. Yeah. So if you click on the second one. Yeah. So here it is actually just the message CTL system start. And the next one also the same. And if you click on the Linux, that is also, there is a binary. And
so, by the way, this shouldn't be that. This should be the bash script.
Yeah, there should be bash script. So there are multiple places is that error. So we have to, I'll try to fix that.
Thank you. Yeah, and moreover, I think it's a decent argument. Like like this command here, this is correct. That you can, this is correct. Although this assumes that you have Meshery CTL installed, and so we, we need some way of conveying that, whether we include, whether we like, ideally we're not creating another step before this, because we really just want it to be like a one-step thing, one step and then you're managing. So it might be that each of these need to, identify mesh-read-CTL as a prereq or something. I don't know.
Yeah. The same with Windows also.
Yeah,
And
this one, yeah. Yep, and I think that it can be updated. It had been intentional that it had a / because the direct installation on Windows was like to download the binaries, and then if you wanted to invoke them, that you would, the full instructions talk about adding that to your system path. And so to your point, like, it's probably best to assume that people have added it to their system path. So yeah, so long-winded, like, yeah, removing it probably makes sense.
yeah, because this is the landing page, so.
Yeah, and it does say, it says download and unzip mesh-read-CTL from the releases page, and then add mesh-read-CTL to your path for ease of use. If you've done that, then you can execute without the /. So yeah. So those are good, those are, yeah, thanks, that's great, thanks, Samir. Briefly then, some of you all have been updating the meshry.io website. Good. There's a number of features that have been ill-described or not very well described. There's a number of features that there are no videos for people to play. There's a lack of guides for, okay, great, I deployed Meshry and now what? I'm not sure. What can I do? Like, there's a lot of things to do, and it isn't always obvious to people. And so if you're looking to write a blog post, like, there's one, like, things to do with Meshry, like, or here's a goal, there's if you want to write a blog post or a guide in the docs, great. Or if you want to update this site and suggest that there are certain things to do, one of the things to do is for people to benefit from what is a forthcoming catalog of service mesh patterns. Great. Okay, where's that catalog? Well, there might need to be a little more thought to this than what I'm just about to suggest, but even if we do what I'm about to suggest, it's a good thing, which is, maybe there needs to be a page that has a list of patterns and not just the list of patterns, their name, but the YAML that is the actual pattern itself, the YAML. And so for a while we had been, and so that's actually my point. That was the point of the agenda item, was to say, oh, we should look at publishing the patterns and their examples. I mean, not their examples, the YAML with them. Or find just publishing the list and linking to where to get the pattern. There's one of the organizations that's out there is Service Mesh Patterns, this one. And the intention is to load up this repo with a bunch of patterns. So that's one thing. The other aspect to bringing forth like a collection of patterns on the site is we've been trying to figure out what to displace this contributors list with. This is antiquated, not as good as the other one. This only speaks to Meshry contributors, not people who've done things on the other projects, for a lot of reasons, in part because this is just never updated. It's time to decommission this portion, call out more of how to join the community and what's going on in the community, have this meeting up there and recorded, like, so people can watch some of these. There's a lot of things to talk about and show. And one of those things is service mesh patterns. And so that's what I wanted to call out today. Cool. Anybody have any other questions or comments before we conclude?
All right then. Thank you for joining, everyone. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week in the other meetings. Bye.
Wow. Thanks, Devendu. See ya.
See you next week.
Okay, bye all.